What if you could find brand new worlds right here on Earth, where anything is possible? Same planet, different dimension. I found the gateway.
The Rewatch podcast presents the Sliders Rewatch, dedicated to the series Sliders on Fox and Sci-Fi Channel. Join us each week as we continue crossing the Einstein-Rosen-Podolsky Bridge and find ourselves in strange new worlds. Email your thoughts on each episode to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or on Twitter @rewatchpod. And welcome back to the Rewatch podcast and our Sliders Rewatch. I'm Cory.
And I may not look like Tom, but the face has a way of changing with these injections.
It does. I was going to say something. You don't look right.
Yes. Well, now you know.
You look shifty. You seem to have developed a British accent.
Not quite. Oh, maybe I have. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, no.
No.
Confound you.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. And, of course, we are discussing 2 more episodes of Sliders this week. It is Soul Survivors and the Other Slide of Darkness. Yes. So, right here at the beginning, let's get into a little bit more by the way. Just a tiny little bit. I watched The Exodus Excised.
Oh, nice. What'd you think?
And I agree with pretty much everything you said. It's very tight. It's great. It made it seem like a lot happened in one episode.
Yes. Yeah,
it was still well paced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was very well done.
Yeah. All right. So I've posted a link to that on our Facebook and our Twitter. So if you have any trouble finding it, it's over there. But otherwise, just go to Vimeo, search Exodus Excised, or Google Exodus Excised Vimeo. You'll find it easy enough.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good.
Yeah, worth checking out. All right, well, getting into our first episode today. The episode is Soul Survivors, written by Stephen Kreazier and directed by David Peckinpah. This originally aired on March 7th of 1997.
The thing's not going to get up and come after us. It's dead.
You saw those eyes. Dead might not be dead on this world.
He was feeding. He was going to eat me raw. He was so hungry.
Great. Cannibals.
You know, if you didn't ditch my gun on that last world, you wouldn't be so scared now.
Look, I told you I didn't touch your gun. I'm still glad you lost it.
I didn't lose it. Someone took it.
Maggie, back off.
Either that tooth back there came from an old man, or that guy lived one hell of a hard life.
My guy had all his teeth. I got his dental records in my cab.
He must be in a lot of pain.
Looks worse than it is.
I guess this means he's not feeding alone.
Let's keep moving.
Yeah, good idea.
We start in a world where bodies litter the streets of a dark and dirty city, and Quinn suddenly being bitten on the leg. Further dead remains indicate that the creature that had attacked the dead bodies was not an animal, but a human. As the Sliders find a shelter fenced off and protected from the attackers, they meet a woman, Deborah, who has been trying to hide and survive from the humans who have been infected by bacteria, turning them into flesh-eating zombies. Wade and Remy decide to try and find another hospital and hopefully a doctor, but only find themselves dealing with their feelings on Maggie and the changing group dynamic. Quinn becomes more and more infected from his bite, works on a cure for his condition but finds it hard to do so, and eventually acts out wildly before being sedated by a surviving doctor who has been also trying to find a cure. When Maggie mentions Deborah and her immunity, he finally sees hope, explaining that the bacteria and its original antidote started out as a weight loss solution, engineered to attack fat in the body but went a little caca, causing people to crave fat, going so far as to eating others to get it. Quinn escapes, the sedative the doctor gave him earlier wearing off, and makes his way back to Deborah and is able to overcome his infection enough to fix her generator. He manages to communicate that Deborah's blood is needed, and he heads back to the hospital to the doctor with a sample. Wade, Remy, and Deborah follow, but the zombies take Deborah prisoner. Quinn, saved by the doctor's new cure, goes to save Deborah, eventually rescuing her. Together, the doctor and Deborah decide to stay and inoculate the population while our sliders slide.
Open the door!
I'm a doctor.
Then open the door. A man in here needs help.
You're the one that matters. Look, you must cooperate with me. It's crucial.
What did you inject into him?
It's just a sedative. I'll provide you with more so he stays out.
Doctor, you don't have to be afraid. I'm not infected.
I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid for you.
You one of them?
Not quite.
Doctor? Doctor, are you there?
Fill it with your blood.
What for?
Your blood has a natural immunity to the bacteria. I can isolate the antibody.
You don't understand.
Please just do as I say.
Listen to me! I was never exposed.
You can't be sure of that.
Trust me, I can explain. I wasn't here. Doctor! Doctor, you warned me! Now open this door!
Okay, so let's get into the trivia.
All right, so a little bit here. In the beginning, the attack that happens on Quinn was actually going to be a lot more violent. It was going to be more of a fight between Quinn and the zombie that attacked him. So just a little more action, like they like to do this season. There was going to be a little more with Maggie and Wade at each other's throats, more comments and, insults and threats and whatnot.
Well, I think we're going to get enough of that.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get plenty of that. Good times, good times. Let's see. Deborah has something called mentholatum, which I guess is something like menthol, I guess. And she used it in the episode. She put some on her nose, and she gave some to the sliders, but they never really explained what it was. But in the original script, she explained that it's to help with the smell of the dead in the hospital, because once they get in there, there's going to be dead bodies everywhere. It's going to smell awful. So they cut that out.
It's like a chest rub or something like that.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Dr. Tassler explains in the original script that this isn't just a localized phenomenon. This happened worldwide, because there was a period there where the bacteria actually went airborne before going dormant. So even people who didn't take the bacteria as the weight loss solution were still infected. So apparently the entire world has been infected with these fat-eating zombies. There was a couple weird lines here from Remy. Remy and Wade go off and have their little adventure, and they have a good moment there, which we'll be talking about, I'm sure. But there were some lines that Remy said when they were they were arguing a little bit about Maggie, and Remy says to Wade, "What, you're going to attack me now? You acted like trash back there, Wade. I've never been ashamed of you before, but I am now." And it was wow, that was that was a little bit strong, Yeah, it was a little bit much. I just, that to me, see, when Remy punches Quinn in the last episode, that seemed, that fit, but this seemed really out of place.
Yeah, that wouldn't be right.
Right. So it's good. I'm glad they cut that out of there, because that's just not, that seems so out of character. Especially with the episode itself, what's going on in the episode. It's not it's not like in the last episode where he just found out he can go home and said, nope, not yet, sorry. The emotions just aren't there in this one. There was a little bit more with alt history. Deborah was saying that she was actually a caffeine dealer. She dealt caffeine to the Weight Watchers. And Remy says, his mom grew bayberry, which is another plant that is also illegal in this world.
Interesting. Yeah, they kind of get into it, but I don't think
a little bit, yeah.
Any real reason to get deep into it.
Can't talk because of his tongue. The research says it swells. Here,
This always makes me feel better.
I don't think so.
It's Quinn's decision.
What is it?
Caffeine tabs.
Caffeine, that's it?
Yeah. I mixed some cayenne into this batch. My customers love pepper.
Caffeine is illegal here?
Of course it's illegal. Big drug manufacturers brainwash you. The truth is, they knew caffeine was safer than Lipo all along, but anything that's natural and affordable, they outlaw.
Yeah, but caffeine's not a weight loss product.
Yeah, not anymore.
There's a doctor back at the hospital.
Okay, look. I'm going with you. You can't go alone.
You go with him, you only draw more attention. He can move better and faster without you. I'll turn off the front lights.
Okay, look, we'll meet you in the morning for the slide, okay? He's gonna make it. I know it.
I want to believe that.
All right, well, let's get into our discussion of Soul Survivors. So, from the get-go, zombies.
Yay!
What were your, immediate thoughts?
You know, there's a lot of people that love zombies, but I've never got into the whole zombie thing. Besides the iPhone game Plants vs. Zombies. I love that. But other than that, no.
I mean, I like zombies. I watched The Walking Dead. I've seen Romero films. I like zombies.
Okay.
I'm not a fanatic for zombies, but I don't want zombies in my sliders. But, hey, if this is where we're going, we got no choice.
They do give a good explanation for the zombies. It's not just the dead rising up from the grave. So that's good. They did a good job with that.
Yeah, I'll give them that. But there are still zombie movies out there that are about viruses, 28 Days Later and whatnot,
Oh, okay. See, I've seen the commercials for those, but I never really watched them. So I never watched the movies.
So it's kind of, I'm still, Like I said, this is where we're going, so let's roll with it.
So can you pull is this a tribute that you could think of to something?
At this time, I don't think so. I think this is just them steering away from alternate reality.
Right. Yeah.
It seems like they want to do more monstery stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to continue seeing that as we move along.
It does remind me a little bit of I Am Legend.
Okay, yeah.
Now, not if you've seen the movies, and this came because I was remembering Messages in Time. Someone else mentioned the Omega Man with Charleston Heston, which was a movie of I Am Legend book. And there was another one with Will Smith. None of them, in my opinion, captured the book the right way. If you ever read the book, it's definitely different endings in those movies from what the book said. Yeah. And this one, when I was watching this, now I remember, it did remind me a little bit of I Am Legend with the surviving people left over, and there's a very small number of people who have escaped being turned into the zombies or vampires or whatever. So to me, when I was watching it, I was like, this does remind me a little bit of I Am Legend. So there you go. There's maybe a slight tribute.
Maybe taking from Omega Man or something like that, but I could see the literary influence. And I'm not sure when I Am Legend was written, so I don't know. Maybe it was big at the time or something.
Well, I thought it was written quite a while ago. I didn't think it was like a recent thing, because Omega Man came out. Didn't Omega Man come out in the 70s? I think.
Yeah,
because that was Charlton.
Right.
Yeah, because that was Charlton Heston. He was, not that he was big, wasn't big later in, the 80s or 90s, but yeah, see, Omega Man says 1971, so it had to come before that. Right. Must have been in the late 60s, because I actually had the book, and I read the book, and it was, great, because it's written by Richard Matheson.
I've never actually read I Am Legend.
You should read the original book. It's really good. It was written in 1954, and so he wrote this book, I Am Legend. Great story, zombies, death, and everything. And then he also went on to write something called Bid Time Return, which is a love story, the greatest love story. It's was turned into a movie called Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour. So it's just interesting. He has a wide range of styles there. But anyway, I'm getting way off here. Little information for all you out there. Getting back to the episode.
Like I said, this is what we're going with now, so let's deal with it. And I do like the look that the zombies get, those fluorescent eyes.
Right, right.
You know, and the explanation was fine. You know, a bacteria that was marketed as a weight loss product and made people crave fat. So that's why they attack and eat people.
Now, I was confused because he said that, all right, so there was the bacteria that they gave to people so that it would attack the fat. But then, was there an antidote at the same time, or that came after?
No, I think there was an antidote at the same time. I think it was kind of like, you know, how a virus can only infect a certain amount of the population. There's going to be a percentage that is immune, which we get here with the character of Deborah.
Right.
So I guess the cure works in the same way. You can use this Lipron product, as they call it.
Right.
But not necessarily be able to be cured, if that makes sense. I don't know. But that's kind of how I read it. So people started getting infected and they weren't able to cure themselves.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I was like confused. So basically you take the bacteria in, fights off it attacks the fat, and then your body would fight off the bacteria. Is that what the thinking was?
I think so.
And then if that didn't work, that's why they had the cure to help push. Is that? See, I was just when he said there was bacteria and a cure, I was like, well, that's weird. They have bacteria and a cure right away because they know it's going to be dangerous. I thought it was odd. Like I was trying to figure that out.
It seems that this world is obsessed with weight loss products.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
When they get into Deborah's the whole thing with caffeine and stuff like that, and Wade says, you know, caffeine's not a weight loss product, which some may beg to differ.
Right, because it speeds up your metabolism, is what it does. So yeah,
So it seems that they're absolutely obsessed with it, and the company that makes Lipron has some sort of monopoly on weight loss products, and they were the people who made things like caffeine illegal, because they want to be able to sell you Lipron rather than caffeine.
Yeah, because if you go the all-natural route, you can find that in nature, you know? You just whatever, you know, you can make it yourself or whatever, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of like how it's, you know, illegal to grow certain amounts of marijuana or tobacco. You can't grow your own tobacco even, you know? It's because the government has tax on tobacco and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So they make it illegal for you to grow it yourself.
Okay, yeah. All right. Makes sense.
It is all very convoluted to get to where they want to go. They kind of over-explain it, and in that over-explanation, things get muddled and confused.
Now, I was wondering, like, when they landed in, I didn't understand this line. Quinn lands on, I guess it's a cross or something he lands on, but then he says something like, I don't want to talk about it. We shall never talk about this ever again. And I'm like, why? Like, what was he worried about there? I didn't understand that.
Yeah, no, I got the same impression there. I was thinking maybe something was happening on the last world just as they were sliding.
Okay.
And maybe that's what he was referring to.
Right. They do reference that last world, something about a lost gun, or Maggie said something about if you hadn't lost my gun or threw away my gun or something. So, yeah, I guess that could be, yeah.
Yeah, but what was it? What could have been so traumatic that he never wanted to
I know, because he was like, I don't want to talk about it. Don't anyone ever mention it again. Like,
honestly, what flashed into my head is on like YouTube or something like that, where you see someone who like gets in a compromising position while a dog is trying to hump their leg or something.
Right.
And someone with a camera is just not helping that person.
Right. Exactly.
Like that's, I don't know what I thought of. Like maybe something like that happened.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was just so embarrassing that he never wants to bring it up.
Could be. So, yeah, could be. Well, now we get into this weird little moment where Quinn goes up to, they see this fence. He goes up to this fence and he just plays like the most dumb, like the dumbest, ridiculous joke he could ever play in such a tense situation. Like, I understand breaking the tension, but this, I don't know, this was a little bit much, I think. I think this was just totally out of character for Quinn.
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously in a pretty dire situation here.
Right.
You know, they've slid into a world where they don't know what's going on. There are dead people in the streets.
One of them bites you. You know?
Yeah, one of them bit him. So, yeah, it is a little...
It's like to fake being electrocuted. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's just tasteless. I was like, that's a terrible, terrible joke to pull on your friends. I mean, yeah, at the end, they're all like, ha ha, so funny. But it's like, that really could have been cut.
I could understand if it was maybe just a little joke. Like if you went and went like, bzz, or something like
Right,
that.
exactly.
But it went on for like a minute and a half.
He sold it. He sold it really good.
Yeah. A bit much. It's kind of, and they've been doing that a bit lately. I mean, we've commented on how they laugh at Remy and Arturo at that one time when he fell in the garbage.
Right, they're not very nice people lately. It's like, come on.
Yeah, let's not help them. We'll just laugh at you.
Exactly.
Bit tasteless.
Speaking of not being nice, we've got our two ladies involved here.
Mm-hmm. Wade and Maggie.
Yes, Wade and Maggie. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's interesting that you would have Wade be kind of raw about Maggie being there. I mean, she's not the easiest person to get along with, Maggie. I'm just not sure. I can't quite remember how long this carries on for. And,
yeah.
I mean, I can understand it. And it does lead to a great scene later for both characters, really. I mean, Maggie has to start dealing with the fact that she lost her husband.
Right.
Then later, when Wade and Remy are at the hospital, they have a nice moment.
As far as Maggie dealing with Stephen's death, her husband's death, maybe in the hands of a different actress, I would feel more for Maggie or feel more sympathy for Maggie, but I just was not feeling it when she was talking about him. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with Exodus. I just didn't believe that they were a real couple. They didn't have many scenes together, true, but I just didn't feel that there was like a real connection here. Even when he says to her, he says to her in Exodus, he's like, hey, I love you, and she doesn't say it back. She touches her hand to her heart and gives her a little heartwarming look. I'm like, okay. And then she's flirting a little bit. Her and Quinn got this thing that's starting up. I just don't know. I just didn't feel that she was that broken up about her husband's death. Despite what they had in the episode, I'm like, I don't know. Just it was kind of not. It didn't ring true to me.
Yeah, and going back to the Exodus excised video, where they actually remove all reference to her and Jensen being a couple. It fits quite nicely. So it does seem like it could have been something that was added in later in order to give her motivation to go after Rickman and join the Sliders in this pursuit.
She's dealing with her husband's death, fine. But for me, I thought, not to jump around, but I thought that Wade's dealing with the loss of the professor was totally real. Totally, I felt that. Like she, that was real to me. That was much more real.
Yeah, exactly. It was a great scene for Wade. I've said it before. Sabrina Lloyd does these real heart-wrenching emotional things really well. We've seen it a couple of times before. So when she really starts to break down about the loss of the professor and what are they doing, she's trying to get it all figured out in her head and she's just being overwhelmed by it all. Fantastic scene for her.
Her worrying about losing, Remy and Quinn now to Maggie. I think that feels true too. Like she's just freaking out. She lost this man who's been a part of her life for 3 years. A confidant, someone that she counted on. Someone that counted on her, a good friend. And then here's this other interloper. Suddenly, the strangers in the group, and she's worried. Are they still going to be my best friends now? Or are they going to start siding with her? It was really well done, I thought.
And she probably sees Maggie as someone who is cool, calm, collected. She's sort of going with it. She's rising to the challenge, whereas Wade feels like maybe she's struggling a bit and maybe she is being replaced by Maggie.
Yeah.
They've never had another woman in the group before, so...
No.
Sure, there's that as well.
So it makes those, like, when Wade and Maggie are at odds, it seems like a normal thing. Like, it fits well. It doesn't make me like Maggie very much at all, because I'm like, that's my Wade. What are you doing? Hey, back off.
It's also very telling that they have the characters apart when they both have their individual breakdowns, as it were.
Yes. Right.
So they still haven't been able to see each other in that vulnerable state.
Mm-hmm.
So we can keep up that dynamic between them for a while longer. But like I said, I can't quite remember how long it's going to be until these two work it out, I guess.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I seem to remember it was definitely a good couple episodes, but I can't remember exactly how long it was.
Moving along in the story, they do meet an ally. It was Deborah.
Yes. Who, by the way, as I was watching, I kept account. And they didn't name her by name until about 26 minutes in. Halfway through the episode, Maggie finally says to the doctor, you know, like, we met this woman, Deborah. I'm like, oh, that's her name. There it is. Because I was wondering, because they didn't name her, you know, it has to do, you know, that pacing and just like, you know, how to introduce, you know, characters. It just, yeah, it was not well done. But yeah, finally she got a name.
Now, in all honesty as well, I'm watching this on Netflix. I had to put on the subtitles in order to get her name because I couldn't quite understand what they were saying either. Because they don't really introduce her by name. And then they drop her name in the middle of, like, big rambling sentences. So, yeah. And then, of course, it's not until, like, the very end where they actually start talking to her and saying, hey, Deborah.
Right.
So you're like, oh, okay, Deborah, got it.
Exactly.
But she takes them off to the hospital. While they're there, they do run into a doctor, just as they were hoping to find. I can't say I remembered this going into it. It's Jay Asimone as Dr. Tassler. And he's Kowalski from Stargate SG-1.
Now, see, I have not watched any Stargate except the original movie.
Right.
But I did recognize this guy from I've seen him in other roles as well. So I've seen him in other shows. So I did recognize him.
Well, the thing is that in Stargate SG-1, I'm pretty sure he died in the pilot episode. Spoiler alert, by the way.
Okay.
But the thing was that throughout the series, they find ways of, like, traveling back in time or going to alternate realities or whatever.
Right.
And the running gag was that Kowalski would show up in those periods and get killed again. So throughout the whole series of Stargate, he gets killed about 4, 5, 6 times. It's quite funny.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think that I would probably like Stargate quite a bit. But the problem is, when I first started listening to our friend's podcast, the Sliders cast, I listened to that for Sliders stuff, and they would go off on this Stargate, you know, rants and how great it was and how much better it was in Sliders. I was like, you know what? F you. I'm not watching Stargate. Forget it. You know? I'm like, you just ticked me off enough. So eventually, someday, I will get over that and I will watch, you know, more of the Stargates. I know there's a ton of them out there. But yeah, it sounds like a show that I would like.
It is worth it. It is really worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I won't make any comparisons to that and Sliders.
Right.
Different beasts, in my opinion.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so moving on. Quinn starts skulking around like a zombie. You know, there's this whole thing about how Dr. Tassler had sedated him, but he manages to get up and get away, right? So the two of them are, like, talking. They don't realize that Quinn's skulking around. And he leaves. And he shows up at Deborah's place.
Yeah.
And fixes her generator.
Fixes her generator, gets some of her blood. His like zombie condition, it's like here and gone, comes and goes. You know, it's like, man.
Exactly. Like the whole scene when he gets sedated by the doctor, and Maggie's like apprehensive about what's going on here, and the doctor won't let her out of the room. He's locked her in there as well because he wants some of her blood, and she's trying to talk about, like, I wasn't even here when the infection started. So when he finally opens the door, there's Quinn, like, ready to chew on some fat.
Yeah, exactly. Not that Maggie has much fat, but, you know.
Yeah, well, that's true. But, you know, he was ready to attack.
Yeah.
Yet somehow later on he managed to pull himself together enough to fix a generator and
which seemed to involve just replacing 2 tubes. I don't know if there was more to that scene that got cut, but it's like, oh, put this tube here, boom, you're back up. It's like the tire changing, you know? He's that good.
That's how good he is. He's so good he barely has to do any work to get it to actually work.
Yes.
And this is where we get the whole thing about how caffeine seems to help the symptoms as well. She talks about putting cayenne pepper or something, you know?
Right, yeah.
I don't think I'd like coffee with pepper in it.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I like spicy stuff, but I don't know if I would like that.
And then we get to the whole thing about the cure, right? So Tassel's working on the cure and stuff. And this is what threw me off, because he stabs Quinn, right, as soon as they get the blood.
Right.
They've got Deborah's blood there. Maggie's like, quick, synthesize a cure. And then the doctor comes back like 2 seconds later and jabs him.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that was like a fast antidote. So I was thrown off. But then they explained that this was the manufacturer's antidote that came with the bacteria in the first place.
Right.
And that fixes him up just fine. So I was like, why didn't you just jab him with that in the first place?
Right. Why not try that first and see?
Why?
you
Yeah.
know?
Why let him skulk around like a zombie?
Well, we had to have Zombie Quinn, you know. We had to have that, so that's why. We needed the story. I was just thinking about this as Quinn fixed the generator. It was such an easy fix. Why did not Deborah know how to do this? You know, if she spent all this time like surviving on her own, like did they actually say how long this bacteria has been like infecting people? How long this world has been like this? I don't think they did.
No, I don't think they quite specified. But yeah, I kind of got the opinion that it had been a little while.
Yeah, and she survived all this time, yet she couldn't manage to fix the generator just because it seemed, I'm saying maybe there was more to it than that, but it seemed like a pretty easy fix. To, you know, if you're going to survive, you should know how these things work.
Yeah, I mean, even the episode started with like some weird hippie in a bus.
Right, yeah.
Who was freaking out about his generator failing on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I think that was the whole setup for it, was that the zombies don't like the light. That's why they can walk around quite freely in the day.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, it is that thing about, like, this dude, this hippie, was just chilling. He's chilling in your bus in the middle of the zombie apocalypse. And then, yeah, later, and she's freaking out about her generator.
Yeah, the survival instincts, I don't know, or the survival skills don't seem to be too present.
Yeah, how did you people survive? I understand you're immune, but
right.
I think you would have been eaten by now. All right, so all the Sliders are reunited towards the end. And there was this whole thing about how Quinn had kept Maggie back to kill him should he get out of control. And Wade and Maggie have this moment together where she says, "Oh, you couldn't have killed him." And Maggie's like, "In a heartbeat." And it's like all this like overwhelming like sympathetic music or something. I'm like,
yes.
I think that was supposed to be a touching moment.
Very
Maggie
dramatic,
did
yes.
just say that she would kill Quinn.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was bizarre.
I think she was just trying to, like, she was being silly. Like, you know, even though she says that she would have killed him in a heartbeat. I think she was just saying, no, you're right. I probably wouldn't have, because, you know, he is kind of cute. He's got that boyish charm, you know. And
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think she may have been half serious. As I say, like, sure, she's having a joke now, but she said she would kill him. So I was like, I think she probably would have.
She has a smirk on her face. I'll give her that. You know, she has a little smirk on her face. So I'm going to go with the argument that she wouldn't have really killed him. But yeah, I mean, either way, you know, it's possible either way.
And then, of course, just to get a big dramatic crescendo,
which was ridiculous.
Deborah is kidnapped by zombies. They don't attack her or try to eat her. They kidnap her.
Kidnap her, take her below ground into a cave or something, some underground, you know, structure for whatever. It's like I forgot that had happened in the episode originally, and like I was like, well, where'd Deborah go? She's gone. I'm like, oh, look at that, she's been kidnapped because the zombies kidnap all the time in here. And
it was so convenient too because they're just about to, you know, catch up with Maggie and Quinn, and Deborah's just like, I'll hang back and. I'm just going to go and look over here. And he's like, why? Why are you going over there?
Exactly. For what reason? Just come with us, damn it. Yeah, and like, again, and the behavior of the zombies, that doesn't fit with what happens in the rest of the episode. In the rest of the episode, they're attacking and biting, and that's it. In this one, no, we're going to take her down below for whatever, you know? Yeah. It's like, okay.
And again, asking people to come with them, which is I think was an odd preposition for this situation.
Yeah.
You got the last two people, you know, one of which has a natural immunity to this virus and will be needed to synthesize more of this cure.
Right.
Yeah, they're like, you could just leave. Just forget about your world. We'll just leave it, zombie world.
I mean, on one level, I can understand it because you don't know. You don't know if there are other survivors or not, you know, and it's just the two of them now. If there are no other survivors, it's just the two of them against the entire world, theoretically, if the whole world's infected. So, I don't know, like the odds are kind of against them, you know, at like surviving because, I mean, they're going to have to work maybe during the day and try to find the zombies and, inoculate them with the cure during the day. Because if they go out at night, the two of them, I don't think are going to survive very long at all.
Yeah, you're right. They try their best to set Deborah up as this, like...
tough girl.
Badass. You ain't taking my gun.
Right.
kind of chick, but nah.
Yeah, in the end, she's like, no, you keep it. You keep it.
So I'm glad she didn't go with.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, and even if she did go, of course, she would end up on that world with Ryan and, Henry and, the missing cat from Exodus. But anyway, I just got to say, I should have mentioned this earlier when we talked about Maggie, but, counting Exodus, and then we've got this episode as well, they're taking any excuse they have to get her in a tank top. Any excuse at all to reveal her upper body,
Yes. Her chestal
and I'm
area.
not talking to, it's her chestal region. I'm not talking about her muscles. I'm talking, it's like, even like, and we'll talk about it more in the next episode, the camera angles and such, are just really it's a little bit much for me.
I have a feeling that every episode we're going to have to call out the moment they've got her in a tank top.
Yeah.
This one was, we need to get over a barbed wire fence, so I'll take off my jacket.
Exactly. And then finally we have, a little bit of what's the word? Not continuity. What's the opposite of continuity? Discontinuity?
Yeah.
A lack of continuity, I should say, because there's no Rickman. There's no Rickman in this episode, and they're trying to find Rickman. That's their goal.
There is a drop line at the beginning. As soon as they slide in and they see that dead body, the one that Maggie finds the human tooth in,
right?
Quinn looks at it and goes, "Too bad it's not Rickman's remains." And I was like, "Whoa!"
Right? Yeah. I think there was a message in Time about it, about saying how would Rickman have survived on this world? Because with people infected like this, would he really be able to survive with their brain cells or brain tissue? I mean, maybe he just arrived and slid right out. We don't know.
Hard to say, because
right.
Yeah, we get no information on the matter.
That's okay. We'll get more Rickman next episode.
And now it's time for another episode of Tech Talk with Quinn Mallory.
He fixes my timer, and I'm on my merry way.
He's a killer!
Wouldn't be the first time I helped one.
This has been another episode of Tech Talk with Quinn Mallory. Alright, well, let's get into the second episode today. The Other Slide of Darkness, written by Nan Hagen and Scott Smith Miller, directed by Jeff Woolnough. This originally aired April 11th of 1997.
He's here to save himself. That's all. You tell him that. And he's not to go into the fog.
How do you know Quinn?
Quinn, that his name?
Yeah.
That boy's in trouble. I've seen him at night. He can't sleep for his fears.
It's been really hard on him lately. We lost somebody that he cared about very much.
Is that why he beckons death? Why he waits for the axe to strike?
No. Quinn's not like that.
He's looking for death. He'll find it in the fog.
Adriel, we're here looking for a man who brings death with him. Maybe that's what you see in the fog.
Quinn's death will be by his own hand. There ain't no other involved. Beware the Foggins. They live above the fog line. They'll steal your life away while you ain't looking. Don't tempt them.
We won't.
The man you seek wears a uniform. He's one of them now. He exists up there, but he's not strong. He only gets half a life.
We start with a shot of a long-haired Quinn putting on face paint, ready to sacrifice another similarly painted Quinn, when the scene stops and we realize it was a dream being experienced by a woman named Aedra, a blind seer in this dimension. Next, we see a man in an oxygen mask collecting plants while a fog surrounds him. Painted-faced Quinn appears before him and the man runs but is trapped by Quinn's natives, who sever his oxygen mask as he drops to the ground, coughing, seemingly dead. Our team slides in and immediately starts coughing as well, except for Maggie, who herds them out of the fog to safety and eventually the town nearby. As they do, we see our Colonel Rickman talking with the natives. Upon entering the town, they meet Adra, who comments on someone needing brain cells to stay alive, and that Quinn's face appears different than she expected. Remy and Maggie don't believe in Adra's ability, but Wade wants to know more. Adra tells her that Quinn is here to save himself and to not go into the fog. Quinn, Remy, and Wade find evidence that Rickman's timer burnt out and that he has been attacking locals for their brain cells. Maggie heads into the fog to find him, but collapses soon after, Rickman gloating over her that soon the time will come for their showdown. Quinn rescues Maggie, but later, her and Quinn are lured into the fog again, and this time captured by Rickman and the Foggins, bringing Quinn face to face with another Quinn, who turns out to be the Quinn from the pilot that gave our Quinn Prime the solution to the equation, and, as it turns out, also gave the formula to the Cro-Mags, a decision that started Pilot Quinn's descent into his current madness. Pilot Quinn wants Prime Quinn to kill him as a way of releasing him from his sins and in turn making Prime Quinn stronger. Meanwhile, Remy and Wade use information and a special magic bag of Adra's to distract the natives, rescuing Maggie. Back in the cave, Quinn Prime refuses to kill Pilot Quinn and a fight ensues, with Pilot Quinn being knocked out. Quinn Prime rushes from the cave, activating the vortex which sends the natives cowering, and our group slides away.
Maggie, is that you? Maggie, you're looking for me, aren't you?
Colonel Rickman!
Oh, yes, it's me. I'm sorry about Stephen, but he wasn't really mad enough for you, was he? Maybe I did you a favor.
You bastard!
Oh, yes, it's me. The face has a way of changing with these injections. We're different, Maggie. Our lungs are stronger. It hurts to breathe now, but in a couple of days, you'll get used to it. You'll even start to enjoy it. Oh, it's not time yet, but soon. Tell Mallory that. Soon.
Alright, so I'm actually quite surprised, but there's a fair bit of trivia here for this episode.
Yeah, there is. I was surprised too when I was going through. I was like, oh man, like when you're scrolling on the webpage, you could see that bar on the side, and I was expecting it to be like really long, meaning I only had to scroll a little bit, but it was really small. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of stuff here. So originally, Adra was not supposed to be what she looked like. She was supposed to be a 50-year-old black woman, which I think, you remember The Stand, the movie, the TV movie?
Yeah.
I think that they were trying to go for that type of character of, I forget what her name was, Mama something.
Yeah, like Mama
Abigail.
Mother.
Yeah, Mama Abigail.
Right.
I think they were trying to go for something like that. But then, of course, they want to pull in a different type of demographic. So they said they wanted to get a Nancy Butler type. You know Nancy Butler?
Sounds familiar.
Sorry, wait, not Nancy. I think it's Yancey. Yancey Butler.
Yancey Butler.
Yeah, she played in the TV series Witchblade. She played Sarah Pazzini, the Witchblade, and she's been in a couple other things as well. But she's a younger, attractive-looking, at the time, actress. She was also in Kick-Ass. She played the bad guy's wife, who didn't really have many lines, but she was in there.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've just looked her up on IMDb.
Yeah, so she's done a lot, but yeah, they wanted to go with that type of actress, so they got this person to play Adra instead of a 50-year-old black woman, which I wish they had gone with a 50-year-old black woman. I like the idea of
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got that. There was more to the scene with Maggie and Quinn arguing about going to town. And the whole thing about talking about a team and everything, there was just a lot more dialogue there that they cut out just to tighten it up, I imagine. And finally they end the way they did in the episode with them threatening not to take her with them. There was a whole dropped storyline for that man in the beginning that was picking up the plants. That man was a FBI agent originally, and he was there to investigate the murders. We call them comas, but in this world, they were calling those victims that Rickman took, they called them being in limbo. They called the victims limbos because their bodies were alive, but they weren't responsive to anything. They couldn't communicate. So apparently in this town, the FBI never got involved with the Foggins killing people. They're like, the locals don't want us involved. We're going to stay out of there. But when they heard that people were slipping into comas, they were like, all right, well, something weird, something else is going on here. We're going to go investigate now because this is different than whatever it's been before. So when Rickman shows up, the FBI decides to get involved and try to do some, searching to see what's going on, some investigating. So that was a whole thing with, another FBI agent coming looking for his partner, finding out he's dead, wanting to get in there and get Rickman and all this. Just it made it a little bit more convoluted, I think, the story. Just, a little bit more complicated.
So instead, they give no explanation who that dude was.
No explanation. He was just out there picking plants, give to his woman, something like that,
Whatever.
So anyway, Adra doesn't want to show Wade the coma victims in this original script either. But Wade says, do a reading on me to prove that I'm there to help, and Adra does, and it comes out that of course Wade's there to help. There was originally supposed to be a reference to not having phones in this world, so maybe technology was not quite the same, underdeveloped, more primitive, because there was some line about Quinn saying, I mentioned a phone, and the guy looked at me like I was crazy, like I was insane. So no technology, I guess. Maggie said that back on her world, every once in a while, Rickman would just have these crazy outbursts where he would just go mad for 5 minutes, and then he would be back to normal and happy and a nice guy again. And they called those, Maggie was calling those things mad dogs. This is how he reacted to the injections. He called them mad dogs because if he doesn't get his injections, then basically he would have these mad dog outbursts, which is cut from the original, cut from the script that we saw. Quinn says Lucy could come out of the coma, and the professor as well, if they could have just regenerated brain fluid in time. So that's why it's Lucy could, she can get through this, but she just has to regenerate brain fluid. And of course, the professor did not have time to regenerate because the whole planet exploded. So,
and he was shot.
And he was, that's right, he was shot too. Must not forget about that. So we know that Remy comes up with the explanation about the why it's hard to breathe with the sulfur, but there was a little bit more to that. Remy says, "You know what? There must be a volcano underground." He goes more into depth about why the sulfur is affecting and what's going on with the ground underneath. Just seemed to we'll talk about in the discussion, but it just seemed like a little bit too much that Remy would know at this point in my mind. Rickman's speech to Quinn when he was in the cage was a lot trippier than what we got in the episode. Rickman's going off, he's saying stuff like, it's like dying in a dream. You die there, and we're sliding with death. You got to open your mind. He's me, and he is you. Cuckoo, ka-choo, It was a lot trippier than what we had in that final episode.
Bizarre.
Yeah. Let's see. Maggie does eventually fight back in the original script. In the one we saw, she just sort of gets pulled away. But in the original one, she fights back. She gets a rope, that she was tied up with and manages to get it around one of the natives' necks. And, as they're trying to pull her off, the natives are trying to pull her away, she ends up, choking him to death in the original, which that's pretty major right there, I think.
Yeah, just killing innocent people.
Yeah. There was this whole thing with, we got the pilot Quinn and we got Quinn Prime. Some of the things that he says to his double, there's a little bit more involved than what we had in the one that we saw. So, this whole thing about this is the first time, I've been worshipped. He starts saying, I need to hear myself breathe. Dying is like breathing. If you do it in unified space, you're released metabolically. And I'm like, wow, this is really weird. He goes on, he's like, now that Arturo is dead, you'll see what sliding brings out in you. The savage isn't even born yet. Release me into unified space. It's my only hope. The formula on and yes, it just goes on. It's really, really weird, Very weird. The average listener, I can't imagine, would be like, oh, I understand that completely.
They're probably trying to really ingrained that the fog, like, does weird shit to your head.
I guess so, because I'm like, what the heck are they talking about? You know, it's like weird, like this whole unified space thing. I'm glad they cut that out because I don't know what that had to do with anything at all. There was a line about you know, he had that formula on the wall just like he had in his basement. Well, you know, the formula on the wall here, when our Quinn Prime looks at it in this original script, he says you can't contain time like that. So they were going off and talking about, I don't know, time travel or something now with that formula on the wall. It was just really confusing. Now, the thing that I thought was interesting here, which I'm not sure if I like or not, or I don't like, in the original script, Quinn Prime does kill Pilot Quinn at the very end. Instead of just like sliding out like he does in our version, he actually does kill him, and his body is carried out by the natives at the end of the episode. That was kind of like, whoa. I'm not sure if I like that or if I don't like that.
I kind of like that it is left a little
left open
and big. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the thing, and see, when he does kill him, here's what happens there. Originally, Adria was going to say to Wade, you know what? Now he can get you home. He's cold and clear now, more focused. He's going to get you home, you know. So that's what Adria says. Now that Quinn has killed, now he has that anger, that drive to, you know, try to get revenge. So now he's going to be able to get them home because of that, is what Adria says in the original script. And then she says at the end, funny, I hear a gate squeaking, you know, and then they slide out. It's a little bit much. It's a little overdone. I will agree.
Outside of him.
Damn it. They should have just let Rittman go.
Quinn thought he had a stab at it.
In there, it's like nothing's real in the fog.
I tell you what's real. Quinn's gone, and we got 12 hours before the slide.
You know, when I was in the fog, something kept flashing in my mind. That witch's butter.
The shed smelled a lot like the fog.
Yeah.
Figured you'd seen the still.
What's the deal, Bunt? I know it's connected to the fog.
Without the witch's butter, you can't make the tea. Without the tea, you can't go into the fog.
Look, Bud, we've got to go back in there now. If your tea makes that possible.
It's a fresh batch. Needs time to mellow.
We don't have time.
Even with its age, most folks can't keep it down.
Yeah, well, we can stomach it. Look, we may need a guide.
Oh, hell no. It's risky enough just going in there trying to get quick grabs. Any more than that, fog can kill you for sure.
All right, look. How much of it do we have to drink?
You know when to stop, it kind of decides for you. Then wait 20 minutes before starting out. Canteen's in there, too.
Thanks. Look, you keep Lucy doing those exercises. She'll be just fine.
All right, well, let's get into our discussion of the other slide of darkness. So, blonde-haired Quinn in the fog with this tribe. I can't remember what I thought the first time I watched it.
Right.
I mean, going back to it, I knew that was an alternate Quinn.
Right.
And I knew which alternate Quinn it was, too. So, I think it was hard to gauge, like, whether or not I would have thought that was actually Quinn or not. Because they hold on to that right to the end of the episode.
Right, right.
And, you know, there is the whole thing where Quinn encounters Adria and she touches his face and says, oh, you look different to what I expected. Mm-hmm. So I think that was kind of trying to hint you towards that the Quinn we saw at the beginning isn't our Quinn. He's an alternate version.
I don't remember what I thought originally, but I think I did know. Like, I think I had the feeling that that's definitely not our Quinn. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that's what I thought when I originally saw him. Like, no, that can't be our Quinn. That's got to be another double or something.
You know, they slide in and they're in the fog and they can't breathe. And I thought this was an interesting bit of continuity in that Maggie seemed to be kind of all right. Because we kind of set up that her lungs are different from what happened on Earth Prime. So, you know, I kind of like that. And it sets up the whole thing with Rickman being out there in the fog. We're getting there now. They've actually caught up to him on a world. But they can't get to him because of this fog. And, of course, it allows Maggie to have that arrogant streak that she has about, I am going to go in there regardless of what you tell me to do. And it builds that whole dynamic of the three of them versus her.
Not being a very good teammate, she is.
So yeah, so I kind of like that scene, you know, when she's in the fog and they're talking about, you know, how they feel about her. Wade is still at odds with her. She sort of stumbles into the conversation because they don't see that she's coming out of the fog, and she kind of gets the tail end of the conversation.
Right.
And you think that she's kind of justified in saying, like, oh, you know, it's nice to know where you stand, and, you know, I can take care of myself. I've never been a team player. And then Quinn sort of throws it back in her face about, you know, how she feels about them, you know?
Yeah.
It's not all about how we feel about you. It is also about how you feel about us, and we need to work together as a team. So I thought that was really strong.
Yeah, they've got to figure out, like, she has to figure out her place in this team and stop trying to be just like, you know, the Han Solo, you know, going off on her own to do whatever. You know, it's like, we got to work together. So it's you know, it definitely, they're going to, you know, as we go through, they're going to definitely work together more. But still, like, these scenes, I'm just like, I cannot, like, she's the character that I'm like, oh, God, just shut up. Just go with, listen to him. They've been sliding for 3 years. You've done it, like, you know, for a couple days now. It's like, give us a break, you know? Like, trust in the guy who's been doing it. So what do you think about Roger Daltrey in this episode?
He's looking a bit different.
He is looking a little different. That's weird.
I do find it strange that they didn't get Roger Daltrey back.
Right.
And it makes me think, like, was this the plan all along? Like, with the whole injections thing and his face changing, that they would replace him
I don't
after
think so.
the two-parter?
I think they just, I think what they did was they wanted to have that big guest star, but then they realized, well, wait, if we're going to carry this story on for the rest of the season, we're going to have to pay him guest star money, you know, for being Roger Daltrey. That's a lot of money, I would imagine.
It's a bit of an odd explanation when later he's standing over Maggie.
Yes.
She's passed out in the fog.
Right.
She succumbs to the fog. And he says, you know, the injections have a way of changing your face. But this actor is going to continue playing Rickman until the end of the season.
Yes. And his face doesn't change. It stays like that.
No. We're going to get into it in the last episode.
Right.
About how he physically transforms from his injections. But it's still the same actor with the same face.
Yeah. Like, now, when he was on, like, in Exodus, was he, like, how long was he attacking people for brain tissues? It's been for a long time, right?
Yeah, because it was something about he was in war, yeah.
Yeah, wasn't the Gulf War, like, in the early 90s, I believe? Because I think I was in high school when it was going on, I think.
I don't know my history enough about it.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I know it was I thought it was in, like, the early 90s, or maybe it's mid-90s. So it's been a couple years, I think, when the Sliders slide in there, and he's been taking, you know, people's brain, you know, tissues for a while now, and his face still looked like Roger Daltrey all this time. But then suddenly now he starts to slide, and now it changes into this new actor. The explanation that the injections change the face just doesn't hold up if you look at, you know, the past episode. But, you know, we go with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we love Sliders, so we go with it.
And the show has a budget that it needs to stick to.
It does. It does.
So, in the meantime, over in Redneckville...
Redneckville. Oh, yeah, it fits. That's right.
They just encounter a guy who is just a complete chauvinist asshole.
Yes.
Talking
Keep your
about,
woman in place. You know?
Your woman needs to learn some manners there. Ding.
I like that you got the spit in there. Very good.
And they run into this blind seer, Adjura.
Right.
And we are kind of led to believe that she's pretty legit because, you know, she foresees Quinn's death at the hands of himself, which I guess, like I said, it remains open to whether or not that actually happens.
Right.
Because she talks about, like, his death at his own hand. Again, leading us to believe, like, they're trying to make us think that he will kill himself, but what it really is that his alternate wants him to kill him. So technically he's killing himself. I don't know. All that sort of stuff.
Right.
They're trying to be clever here.
Yeah.
And she knows that Rickman is a part of the quote-unquote Foggins.
Right. The Foggins. It reminds me of the Quaggy that we talked about last episode. The Quaggy and the Foggins. They're attacking.
That's a good name for a band.
It is.
Quaggy and the Foggins.
Someone out there start that band. Was Adra fully blind in both eyes, or was it just one? Because only one of her eyes is white, the other one is normal, and I was confused if she was fully blind or only half blind.
Yeah, I don't know, because she's walking around
Yeah,
and stuff later. She takes him out to that hut where Lucy and her father live.
Exactly. So maybe only half blind. I wasn't sure. Just wondering about that.
You know, Remy is like really off-put by it.
Mm-hmm. Which is odd.
Yeah, and they've encountered psychics and things before.
And he's been fine.
Yeah. So later he gives some explanation about some guy that he was in the Navy with who had his cards read. And in the cards it said he was going to die. So
in case you forgot, he was in the Navy, you know. In case you forgot. By the way, oh yeah, my backstory. I forgot about that. Oh yeah, I was in the Navy and I was stationed, and there was this guy. It's like, I really wish they had gotten rid of, like, they hadn't like talked about him being in the Navy. It just seems so. I don't think it lines up with his. I think we talked about his timeline. You know, being a singer and everything. Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Well, Remy has some interesting friends.
Yes.
I remember back in one episode where he told a story about a friend of his who always wanted to be a painter, but went blind from diabetes, so he went to Italy and became a sculptor or something. I was like,
right.
So, yeah, here he's got a friend who was like so believing in tarot card readings that he willed himself to be dead.
I know.
Interesting group of friends he has.
And he could do, like, all these stories could still exist without him being in the Navy. You know, he doesn't need to be in the Navy to have these things happen. I mean, being a singer, you'd be on tour a lot. You'd go all around the world, you know? So it's like the Navy thing, I don't know. It definitely was unneeded.
But they find that Rickman's been raiding the local clinic to try and track down some victims, and that's how they sort of get to Lucy. They could have easily just got to Lucy through Adra, but whatever.
Right.
But it's setting up that it seems that Rickman is sliding to these worlds and he is spending time. He's determined to find new sources of brain juice.
Right.
And he's going to continue to do it unless they stop him.
Right. And this is where we find out that, you know, we weren't sure, you know, from the last couple episodes, was Rickman sliding at will or was he waiting for the window? Up to this point, I think he's been sliding at will, and that's why his timer burns out. Just like the Sliders timer burned out in episode, you know, back in the first season, because they were just sliding whenever they wanted to, and then they realized, no, we have to slide when the dimensions are closer together at that right point. So up to this point, we can assume that he's been sliding just whenever he felt like it. That's why the timer burned out.
And that would make sense for the last world that they were on with the zombies. You know,
exactly.
He gets there, there's no viable people here, so I'll just get out of here.
Yeah.
No. They're talking about Lucy, and Wade suddenly knows some sort of neurostimulation test that they were doing on the coma patients.
Yes. Back
on Maggie's world.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't seem too intrusive. It seemed like she was just like hitting some pressure points on her hand or something.
Right, yeah.
But it seemed to be bringing Lucy around.
It did, but then immediately they don't see it because they leave the room, and then Adra does her thing with the fire, and then, you know, Lucy gets up, so you think, oh, it's because of what Adra did. But no, it's probably because of what Wade did scientifically, you know?
Yeah, but that's dropped quickly. I mean, she mentions it like one more time to the father.
Right.
Just keep doing those neurostimulation tests. You'll be fine. Yes. And you're like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, the father looks like he'll handle those neurostimulation tests real well. He'll understand. He'll understand completely.
Yeah, firm grasp of it. But they're going to go out into the fog after Rickman. This really threw me off because Remy calls out Rickman's English accent, and I mentioned during our discussion of the Exodus how it sounded like he was trying to affect an American accent.
Right.
And he was talking about saving American lives, but why was this English colonel in the American forces? I don't know.
Right.
So they call out that, yes, he has a British accent. And this new actor is putting on a British accent.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
If he's not actually British, I'm not sure. But, yeah, very off-putting. So Maggie heads into the fog. She gets a bit overwhelmed, and this is where Rickman is ominously like standing over her, and he says, "Deliver a message to Quinn for me."
Right.
And the message is just soon.
Right.
And I was like, Rickman suddenly has like a huge vendetta against Quinn. Like,
Right.
I understand he probably, like, hates that they're chasing after him and whatnot, but why Quinn specifically?
Yeah, suddenly he's like the, his arch nemesis, It's like, where'd that come from, It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, yeah, like you said, understandably, he doesn't want them chasing him, trying to stop him, but I don't know. It was just kind of like, yeah, it was very dramatic, very overly dramatic, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the fog making him go caca, or the fact that he'd run into the alternate Quinn or something. I don't know, but...
Right.
Yeah, it was just... It's like you said, it makes it sound like he's an arch nemesis of Quinn now.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that would have fit really well for Logan St. Clair, because that's what that was perfectly set up for.
Yeah.
So we got Remy and Wade were talking, and there was this whole, like... Now, we did mention earlier about his experience with that guy from Haiti, and I remember just noticing during that thing, there was a really bad bit of ADR. I don't know if you noticed it. Like, he's talking to Wade and telling her about this guy, and then they would cut to a different shot of him from the back, and like the audio his voice was so different, like the equalization on it was so different. I was like, oh my god, what the heck? And then they went back to the shot of his face and it changed, and they went back to the shot of his head, and again it changed again. I'm like, man, there's such a simple fix for that. Just play around with the EQ a little bit, try to make it match better. I was a little shocked by that. Like, you could tell. Yeah, you could really tell it was this, replaced dialogue there for whatever reason. But the one thing that I thought was interesting was Remy. He was not impressed by Adra's, hocus pocus, and Wade says something to him about, well, you have faith, you have this, religion, and he said there's a difference between faith and superstition. And I'm wondering, like, I don't know. Like, not to get in a whole religious, discussion, but faith and superstition. If you don't believe in someone's faith, you could see that faith as superstition. Like, I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, faith versus superstition. Like, I'm not super religious myself. I don't call other people's faith, just superstition. It's what they believe. But I don't know. I'm not. I thought, well, they're kind of close. They're kind of related, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, you're really delving into a theological rabbit hole, really.
Right. Yeah.
You can look at, when you say faith or something like that, sure, you can think of things like Christianity or Catholicism, whatever. But it's kind of ignorant to say that people who, might follow a pagan religion, or,
right.
like Adra with her being a seer or something like that, and not calling that a religion or having faith in spirituality and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it is a little ignorant of Remy. And it's like we said, it is kind of out of nowhere that he has had this friend who blah, 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 and you're like, whatever.
I'm thinking that if the professor was still in the show, that this would have been, it wouldn't have been Remy. It would have been the professor, arguing for faith, and Wade, for, the superstition, because that's what they did. That's what they always did. So I thought that would have made, like, I think that would have been another underlying storyline that might have been explored a little bit with the two of them.
Well, in the meantime, Adra tells Quinn that if he goes into the fog, he'll never come out. So what happens? Rickman shows up, does something to Wade, tries to kidnap her or something.
It's all
trap,
just
maybe.
Yeah, it's a lure to get Quinn to go into the fog after.
Yes, so Quinn immediately goes into the fog after he was told not to, and of course he's captured by the Foggins with Maggie, and they're taken off to the Foggins village, which is not in the fog.
No, like,
it seems
there's
they live
nothing around,
above the fog.
Yeah.
And this is where Rickman confronts them. And he is bug nuts crazy.
Yeah, he's really... And this one is, like, so weird, Like I said, in the deleted scenes, he gets a lot weirder. But, yeah, it's, like, such a change from his character.
And it's like we were saying in the trivia there. It seemed that they went even crazier.
Yes.
As if he was just, like, pumping LSD and... trying to write a Beatles song or something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, he's talking all kinds of craziness. And it's all leading towards this mysterious tribal leader. Which turns out to be the alt Quinn.
Which I saw that coming. Like I said in the beginning, I knew that wasn't our Quinn in the beginning. So I knew he was going to... Maybe it's just me retroactively believing I was much smarter than I was, but I think back in the day I thought, oh, that's an alt Quinn. I didn't know it was that alt Quinn, but I knew it was an alt Quinn.
So what did you think of this, being that the alt Quinn is the same one from the pilot episode?
I like that idea. I do. I like the idea a lot. I thought that was cool to bring it back around like that. Now, I think this comes up in the messages in time. Some people were saying this, but we might as well mention it here. This is Quinn, who was sliding by himself when we saw him. When Pilot Quinn comes in to meet Quinn Prime in the pilot episode, he's all by himself. He's not with Wade or the professor or Remy or anybody. He just slides by himself. So I thought this is an interesting story arc for Quinn as well. Like, what would Quinn be if he was sliding by himself instead of with his friends? Because if you're sliding by yourself, you're experiencing all these other worlds on your own with no one really to share it with. So maybe it would make you get a little bit of a complex, maybe go a little mad, maybe in this case, becoming the god of this little village. Maybe it would make you, maybe it would push you to things like that, or to be a little bit cockier, that you would give, Cro-Mags the key to sliding. I don't know. I like the idea, and I thought it was a neat one that they didn't explore enough. What would Quinn be without his friends there? I thought it was cool.
But, of course, you can pick at the plot holes, really, because that alt Quinn was married.
He was married, yes.
He could have taken her sliding with him.
He could have.
So, there's that. But, yeah, the big thing is that he says he feels really guilty about giving sliding technology to the Cro-Mags.
Right.
And this is the first time we've heard of the Cro-Mags since the episode they were introduced in.
Exactly.
In that episode, they made it seem like the Cro-Mags had been sliding for quite a long time.
A long time, yes.
A very long time.
Yes.
And that, they'd set up all kinds of outposts on other worlds, and they had kidnapped human children.
Yep.
This was Mary, and they had grown up with the Cro-Mags to be interpreters or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was clearly set up that they'd been doing this for a long time.
Right.
But apparently it's only been between the time that Alt Quinn gave out Quinn the equation and when they actually ran into them.
Right. I'm wondering if maybe he just ran into maybe a more primitive version of the Cro-Mags and gave them the secret, and then maybe he just I don't know, maybe another race, another dimensions Cro-Mags invaded his world or whatever and destroyed everything. So it definitely doesn't fit in with what we know from what Mary said, which, they mentioned this as well in Messages in Time. Mary could have been lying as well.
That's true. She was under their, mental influence.
Right.
But no, I don't like this.
No.
I don't like that it has been such little time that the Cro-Mags have been sliding.
Right.
Because it really made them feel like a formidable force. They had been doing this for a long time. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they were world invaders.
And they can control it, Yeah.
So it is a bit off. Yeah, his whole thing is that he wants to... he wants Quinn to kill him. It's this weird god complex that he's got.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes to the effort... because he wants to make Quinn hate him, so he will kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So he fixes Rickman's timer for him. It was burnt out, so Rickman, he can just up and leave. So Alt Quinn just sort of confronts him about it, and he says, he pretty much comes at him with the intention of saying, I'm going to kill you, so you better kill me.
Right.
And then it just ends with Quinn sort of punching him in the face.
Right. And running outside,
yeah,
screaming.
and I was like, that's it? That's the big confrontation? I mean, I'm not saying I wanted Quinn to kill him.
Right.
But it could have been a bit more epic.
Well, it was one of those tidy endings because we're running out of time. We need to finish the episode. So it was a very quick ending.
And we're not going to get back to this. We're never going to know what happened to that Quinn.
Right. But we don't want to forget. We don't want to forget about Maggie because Maggie and this scene did not need to be in there. There was no reason for this scene to be in there except to appeal to the young adolescent boys in the audience. They were going to sacrifice Maggie like in the sexiest way possible. And the camera helps you with that too, because it starts down low and just goes ahead and slowly pans upward. Oh, look at that. She's got a mole right there. Oh, look at that. It's like really? I mean, all right, I'm a guy. I understand the appeal, but I mean, you don't need that in here. There was no reason for that.
I know. It was making me think of King Kong. You know, when they're going to sacrifice the woman to King Kong.
Right.
So they put her in, like, the skimpiest of short little tribal dresses.
Yeah, because King Kong cares about that, you know. He's got a thing for this, you know, for the bikinis, you know. Don't put a one piece on her because the King Kong doesn't like that.
So fortunately, Wade has a magic bag from Adra that she sets on fire. And she says the people will bow to its greatness or something like that. I don't know what she said.
Yeah.
And all it was that it smoked up and had her face appear on it.
I know.
And I was like, wow. These people, like,
I guess if they remember
easily
her,
worshipping.
I mean, if they remember her from the village, maybe they, I don't know. Yeah, that was a bit odd. Just her big
It's that
floating
woman
head.
we blinded. Quick, worship her.
I know. Exactly. Hey, look at that's what's her name? Didn't we blind her one time, Joe? Yeah, we sure did. Well, bow down, damn it. Yeah,
now
it was
she's
a bit
a
odd.
big face in the sky and she's not blind. We better worship her.
Exactly. What's going on here? Yeah, that was a bit odd. The magic bag.
So at the end, are we guessing that the alternate Quinn, the pilot Quinn, was still alive? Yeah.
I'm saying he's still alive. I mean, because Quinn didn't kill him. You know, in the original script he was supposed to, but you know, in the final version he didn't kill him. You know, they didn't show it at least. I don't know. I definitely don't think I wanted him to kill him, but I thought, I don't know. I see where they were going with the whole original storyline. You know, with him killing him and then seeming like a more stronger character or a stronger man because he was able to kill. Now he can defend, you know, against the Cro-Mags and get home and more. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I mean, I actually did like the episode. I like the idea. I like when they meet their alternate selves the most, you know, and seeing the differences between them. So I think that's why I liked it, because we brought back someone from the pilot, you know, and seeing how he has changed tremendously. So I like that idea, but maybe it just wasn't executed the best way.
And it has been a while since we've seen any alternate versions of the Sliders, aside from Maggie running into herself when they were doing that recon stuff.
Exactly.
But I can agree with that. It was an all right episode, but you know, there's a lot of stuff that you can poke holes in.
Man, what happened to you?
The Cro-Mags happened to me. Don't feel sorry for me. I'm responsible for the Cro-Mags. Responsible for all the worlds they pillaged. The populations they enslaved. They couldn't have done it without me.
You gave them the equation.
I gave them the formula, and they destroyed my home. Hate me. Like they hate. Instinctively. The Cro-Mags act with a crystal-like willful intelligence. The brilliance in that. You have to see it.
You don't believe that. You can't believe that.
Tick-tock, tick-tock. Your friends. They're coming for you, aren't they?
Probably.
Must be nice.
Must be nice. They're probably gonna die in that fog trying to get here.
Don't worry. Fog changes everything inside of you.
Shut up!
I'm trying to open your mind to see what I really am. I want you to hate me. You have to. You have to kill me. I need to know I've done something to turn things around.
Killing you won't change anything.
It will change you. Your will make you strong like them. Strong enough to get home, to protect it, to protect the ones you love. Like I couldn't. This is how it all started. Just an equation on a wall. God only knows where it will lead us. What horrors. I need you, Quinn. I need you to stop me. I can't stop myself. This is the end. For me or her? Your choice.
All right, well, let's get into some messages in time.
All right, so a lot of people, we're going to start with the other slide of darkness here. A lot of people were saying, as we did, Rickman's excuse for why his face has changed is dumb. You know, it's just a ridiculous explanation. They said, like we did, giving Cro-Mags the equation doesn't fit in with the timeline that Mary told us about, you know, how she was raised by Cro-Mags. They were wondering, you know, where exactly were the Sliders in this episode? Because to some people said it looked like the South, looked like Louisiana, and that would be out of the range of the timer, really. So they were wondering, where, like, is this supposed to be L.A.? You know, just an undeveloped L.A.? So, yeah. And then one guy said, you know, I really thought Maggie might keep her clothes on for an episode. Oh, well, you know. I'm like, oh, yeah, you know.
Or not.
It's going to get worse. They said, you know, they thought maybe it would have been neat if Quinn Prime said, yeah, I'll kill you, you know, if you give me my home coordinates or something like that. I'm like, well, that's kind of out of character too, but I understand what they're saying there, you know. Give him some incentive for why would he, you know, kill him besides just like hate me, you know.
Yeah.
They said that they thought it was neat that Adra was seeing the future of the pilot Quinn, like, because, you know, in the beginning she thought she was seeing the vision of our Quinn Prime, but no, she was seeing the pilot Quinn's future with him dying. And then they were asking the question, which is a very good question: how did pilot Quinn know that our Quinn was Earth Prime Quinn? Like, how does he know it's not just another Quinn that he met somewhere else, or he didn't even meet? Like, we don't. How does he know? I thought it was interesting because he probably met a couple of his himselves on various slides.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, and then we got a little bit more for the Soul Survivors. People were saying, you know what? I like Wade, but I'm not sure about Beckett. You know, I like having another woman in the group, but this whole, you know, this Beckett woman, not sure. I don't really like the idea of her with Quinn. You know, it's just not it's not sitting well with this one person when he was posting. This other person said, you know what, if you change the characters in this episode, then it's not really a Sliders episode. It's just an X-Files episode again, which is true. If you just took the Sliders out of there, there's nothing really that sliding brought to this world. You know, there was nothing specific. It was just like another one like the Paradise Lost, where you could have replaced the main characters and it would just be fine. It'd be the same story.
Well, it's like I was saying about this whole monsters thing that they seem to be getting into. Zombies, and this time fog and fog people.
Exactly. People were not liking the cat fights between Wade and Maggie's, how they put it. They said, I don't really like all this cattiness going on, how they're always fighting. They were wondering also, again, like I said, how Rickman survived in this world. Did he stay here long? Did he slide out right away? Someone was like, you know what? And now here, this was a multiple thread thing here, or multiple post thing. One guy said, you know what? We lost Arturo to this? We lost Arturo to have Maggie kneeling over Quinn, exposing her breasts in that camera angle. That's what we've lost here. You know, like, and I agree with him. You know, like, we lost a great character just so we can see boobs. And a guy posted right after and said, you know what? I'm torn. I love breasts. I love Carrie's breasts. But you know what? It's not actually what I watched this show for. And that's a good point right there. You know, I don't come to Sliders for softcore porn or anything like that. I come here, you know, for alternate dimensions. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we have another guy. There's been a couple guys from 1997 that I've hated in the past. Okay. And this guy, Dan Speziale, he says, in response to what these people are saying, he says, hell no, that was the best part of the show. I say, yes, we lost Arturo to this, and it's a hell of a lot better. Oh, Dan, really? Really? Come on. I mean, seriously. I mean, I got to hope that somewhere in the world, Dan Speziale is thinking, oh, that was, you know, they were right. That was bad. That was bad. I should never have posted that. You know, hopefully he had a change of heart. Someone posted the writer's flow chart for an episode of Sliders, which was kind of fun. The writer's flow chart for Sliders episode or season 3 goes like this: slide in, something happens, something else happens, Maggie gets naked, some other stuff happens, slide out. In the meantime, make sure Maggie tells the others they're idiots or jerk-offs. There you go. I was like, that's good. That's good. I like it. Let's see. They really liked Sabrina Lloyd. She said she was doing good stuff in this episode with her breaking down, and her character really worked best when it was contrasted against Arturo's character. So they're hoping for something more like that to come up. They said that Wade and Remy together in this episode really felt to them like Arturo and Quinn when Arturo was being like the fatherly character to Quinn. It felt like maybe Remy was being a fatherly character to Wade in this episode, and I could see that.
Interesting. Yeah.
There was also some talk about the geographic stabilizer because they were wondering again, is the Egyptian timer, does it have the same geographic stabilizer, or can they just end up anywhere in the, up along the coast or whatever? So that was a whole long discussion about whether they replaced it with Quinn's original geographic stabilizer or not. And, people were saying, you know what, it's good. It's good sometimes in series to have a character that you love to hate, and they're referring to Maggie, of course. That they're not quite sure about her yet, but she's there. We love to hate her, so we'll see what develops with her. And then finally, someone said, "You know what? I am really not looking forward to the new episode coming out. I think it was going to be in 2 weeks after this one aired." They said it looks like it's going to be Species Redone. So they're kind of right about that.
And like I said, this was just chopped up a little bit. So the other side of darkness came a little bit later.
Right.
And the episode we're getting into next week was pushed up.
Right.
All right. Well, how about some messages from Earth Prime?
All right. Well, what we have now, again, plug in the Sliders.tv forum. There's a lot going on over there recently. iReactions posting a lot of reactions. Look at that. A lot of reactions to our podcasts and our discussions. And like I said before, very introspective, very in-depth discussions there. So check it out. Very interesting. But what he brought up was something that I'm calling David Peckinpah, the story behind the story. Apparently, way back, when Sliders was going on, there was a lot of postings going on in another forum that, like I said, I was not involved in because I just didn't even know much about, news groups and forums and things like that back when these were airing. But I guess iReactions was there, and there was a lot of stuff posted about David Peckinpah by his family coming to his defense, I guess, about, how he's not this evil person. He is a good man. He's a good family man. And so a little information that might make you think a little bit differently about David Peckinpah, because we had an episode, Murder Most Foul, written by David Peckinpah that was amazing. We loved it. So it's like, how could he go from that to what we know ruined Sliders,
Yeah.
Basically, what happened was around the time that he took over, he lost one of his sons. One of his sons died from meningitis. And that really affected him. Not to mention, I guess Peckinpah was also a recovering drug addict. But he put all that stuff, behind him in order to be a father to his family, a husband and a father. And, he was good for 20 years. He was away from all that stuff. And then, his son died of meningitis. And it just, it destroyed him, which I can't even imagine the death of your child. Like they always say, no one should outlive their children, Mm-hmm. And so, like, basically he fell apart and he got right back into drugs again. At the same time, they assigned him to Sliders, and he just didn't care. He really didn't care. His son had died. He was trying to recover from that, heal from that. As long as people went along with what he said, here's what we're going to do, he was fine. But if you went against him, that's when he would just like rail on you, and that's how John Rhys Davies ended up getting messed up with his role and everything. And as long as you did your stuff, Peckinpah was great. But if you were going to fight against him, it was like war. It was not going to go good for you. So yeah, it gives you a little bit more insight into his state of mind at the time, why we see these things where lines are not redone when they obviously should have been redone, and where stories are not quite introducing things correctly. He wasn't in his completely right mind, I guess, is what we're trying to say. So, it doesn't, like, where was it? They said here there's a guy named Informant who is on the Sliders.tv forums as well, and I guess he also was around at that time as well. So Informant said back then, he said, what you have to understand is, we understand he was a wonderful father and a loving man, but when you run a show like Sliders, you're creating a legacy. People who don't want to be mocked and ridiculed really need to put some thought into what they're producing. I have no doubt that David Peckinpah was a solid citizen, unmatched in his moral integrity, the last good man on earth. His show still sucked. And that sort of sums it up. He was a great guy. He was a good father, a good husband, but his show, he didn't give enough to his show, and the show ended up suffering for it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're in show business.
Exactly.
And it's the business of show, and if it's not entertaining, then, you're going to get critiqued on it pretty harshly.
So, I mean, it definitely makes me look at David Peckinpah a little differently to know what was going on in him, when this whole thing was going on. So it does humanize him a little bit more. He's not the evil dictator we thought, I'm going to ruin Sliders. It's not quite like that.
Oh, well, there you go. A little behind the scenes there.
Yep.
Thank you for that, reactions and Informant.
Yes.
All right, so next week we are discussing The Breeder and Stoker.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
So, yes. If I remember correctly, these are both going to be Creature of the Week episodes.
Yes. Yep.
As I said, continuing with that format.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up with listener interaction by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast and follow the show on Twitter at rewatchpod. You can also visit our webpage at rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com, which has some of our favorite links there, such as dimensionofcontinuity.com, earthprime.com, and the active forum over at sliders.tv.
And remember, you can always write us an email or record a voice message and send it to the Rewatch Podcast at gmail.com. And also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. It'll take you a minute, and everybody will know that you love the Rewatch Podcast and how awesome we are. All right, thank you for joining me, Tom.
Of course.
And I will just say, until next time, you won't bite nobody else, sucker.
We gotta slide.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with NBC Universal, St. Clair Entertainment, Fox, or Sci-Fi Channel. The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes, as provided in United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Copyright 2015, The Rewatch Podcast.